The rain fell in heavy sheets over Seattle, turning Pike Street into a shimmering mosaic of neon lights, reflected in puddles and the blur of hurried umbrellas. It was New Year's Eve, 2024, and the city buzzed with the anticipation of the midnight countdown, undeterred by the storm soaking the streets. At the top of a sleek glass skyscraper, overlooking the chaotic glow of downtown, Ethan Carter, a 35-year-old entrepreneur, reviewed spreadsheets in his minimalist office, furnished with mid-century modern pieces and a floor-to-ceiling window framing the tempest outside. As the founder of Nexus Tech, a startup that had transformed the food delivery app market in the Pacific Northwest, Ethan was known for his razor-sharp intellect and magnetic charm, but also for his intolerance for mistakes. That night, as the city geared up for celebration, he grappled with a decision that gnawed at him more than he cared to admit. On the floor below, in a conference room lit by stark fluorescent lights, Rachel Bennett, a 28-year-old data analyst, adjusted her fogged-up glasses and put the final touches on her presentation for the team. Her curly hair, still damp from her dash through the rain to get to work, dripped subtly onto the navy blazer she wore with pride, though it felt inadequate under the weight of the moment. Rachel was a rising star at Nexus Tech, celebrated for her knack for turning numbers into strategies, but a recent error in a critical report had shaken her standing. With her 2-year-old daughter Mia waiting at home, Rachel felt the strain of every second in that room. She took a deep breath, trying to push past the exhaustion of months spent juggling impossible deadlines and raising a child alone as she walked through the figures projected on the screen. The door swung open abruptly and Ethan strode in, cutting off her presentation with a sharp gesture. "Rachel, can you explain why the last quarter's performance report has such glaring discrepancies?" His voice was icy, slicing through the quiet room. All eyes turned to Rachel, her face burning. She tried to explain that someone else on the team had altered the data, but Ethan, pressed by an upcoming investor meeting, wasn't in the mood to listen. "You know mistakes like this are unacceptable. That report was the foundation for our expansion into Oregon. You're done." The words hit like a thunderclap, and the silence that followed was almost tangible. Rachel stood frozen, her heart racing as her colleagues averted their gazes, uncomfortable. Without a word, she gathered her papers, laptop and bag, each movement feeling like slow motion. At the lobby, with Mia in her arms, bundled in a faded pink coat, Rachel faced the rain again. The toddler giggled, pointing at the twinkling lights along the street, oblivious to the gravity of the moment. "Thanks for the opportunity," Rachel murmured to the security guard, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. Her eyes welled up, but she refused to let tears fall in front of strangers. From his office high above, Ethan watched Rachel's silhouette fade into the rain, Mia clinging to her like a tiny beacon of hope. Something stirred in his chest, a fleeting memory of his own childhood, when he and his mother navigated tough nights in a cramped apartment in rural Idaho, with bills piling up and the future uncertain. He pushed the thought away with a sigh, turning back to the emails flashing on his screen. Emotions were a luxury he rarely afforded himself. Nexus Tech's success hinged on his ability to stay focused, and he couldn't afford to waver. But as he typed, the image of Rachel and Mia in the rain lingered, a discordant note in the rhythm he tried to ignore. Meanwhile, Rachel trudged through Seattle's drenched streets, the distant boom of early fireworks signaling midnight's approach. The rent for her small apartment in Capitol Hill was overdue, and the firing meant eviction loomed just days away. Mia, nestled in her arms, pointed at the festive shop windows, laughing with the innocence of someone untouched by the world's weight. Rachel held her daughter close, drawing strength from her warmth, the only certainty in the storm. She didn't know how, but she vowed to find a way to survive, not for herself, but for Mia. Seattle's streets pulsed on, indifferent to Rachel's pain or Ethan's unease. Umbrellas multiplied, and gridlocked traffic created a symphony of honks blending with the rain. In that moment, no one could have predicted that this New Year's Eve would mark the start of a journey that would reshape both their lives. Rachel, with her quiet resilience, and Ethan, with his success masking an inner void, were destined to cross paths again in ways neither could foresee. The rain, a silent witness, kept falling, washing the streets and carrying the promise of a new year that, for Rachel, began with a bitter goodbye, but also the spark of hope she couldn't yet see. The rain gave way to a foggy New Year's Day morning, the Seattle skyline shrouded in grey, as if echoing the storm from the night before. Rachel Bennett woke early in her modest Capitol Hill apartment, the hum of distant traffic mixing with the sputter of the coffee maker she started each morning. The place was small with peeling paint and thrift store furniture, but Rachel kept it spotless, as if order could counter the chaos her firing had brought. Mia slept in a makeshift crib beside her bed, her peaceful face a stark contrast to the anxiety gripping Rachel's heart. The dismissal from Nexus Tech had been a brutal blow, not just for the loss of income, but for the public humiliation in front of her team. She could still hear Ethan Carter's voice, sharp as a blade, calling her mistake unforgivable. But what stung most was knowing the error wasn't hers. Someone had tampered with the report's data, and she, stretched thin by exhaustion, hadn't had a chance to prove it. Holding a steaming mug of coffee, Rachel gazed out the window as the city stirred. The overdue rent loomed like a constant shadow, and without her salary, eviction was imminent. Still, she refused to surrender to despair. For Mia, she had to stay strong. She decided that this first day of the year wouldn't be for mourning, but for action. She slipped into jeans, a light sweater, and tied her curly hair into a high bun. After dropping Mia off with a trusted neighbor, Mrs. Helen, a kind retiree who treated her like family, Rachel boarded a bus to downtown Seattle. Her destination was Hope Haven, a community center in Belltown where she'd volunteered during college. There she knew she could find not just support, but a purpose to start over. Hope Haven was a warm, inviting space, its walls covered in children's artwork, and the scent of fresh-baked bread wafting from the community kitchen. Rachel was greeted by Sister Mary, a middle-aged nun with gentle eyes that seemed to see beyond words. "Rachel, what a lovely surprise. How can I help you today?" Sister Mary asked, offering a cup of herbal tea. Rachel hesitated, pride wrestling with need, but she poured out her story. The firing, the injustice, the uncertainty ahead. Sister Mary listened quietly without judgment, then took her hand. "You're stronger than you know, Rachel. You're not alone here. We'll help you get back on your feet." That same day, Rachel began volunteering at the center, coordinating donations for families in need. The work was grueling but fulfilling. For the first time in weeks, she felt a purpose bigger than her pain. As she sorted food baskets, she talked with mothers who, like her, fought to provide for their kids. Their stories mirrored her own, making her feel less isolated. That evening, when she picked up Mia, her daughter ran into her arms, giggling with the joy of a child who saw the world as an adventure. Rachel held her tight, feeling that, despite everything, that smile was her reason to keep going. Meanwhile, across town in Queen Anne, Ethan Carter tried to convince himself that Rachel's firing was just business as usual. In his sleek penthouse, staring out at the city through a glass wall that felt like a barrier to the real world, he felt an emptiness wealth couldn't fill. He'd built Nexus Tech from nothing, the son of a seamstress who worked late nights to afford his coding classes as a teen. Memories of his mother, her hands worn and her smile weary, haunted him. The night before, the sight of Rachel leaving in the rain with Mia in her arms had stirred those memories. He tried to distract himself with a glass of bourbon and a jazz playlist, but the unease persisted. Ethan opened his phone and searched Rachel's LinkedIn profile on a whim. Her photo, smiling at a company event with a spark in her eyes he hadn't noticed before, caught him off guard. The caption read, "Grateful to be part of something bigger." He closed the app, frustrated with himself. Why did this firing bother him so much? He'd let go of employees before, but none left a void like this. Maybe it was the way Rachel had left, without begging, without excuses, just a quiet dignity that unsettled him. In the days that followed, Rachel threw herself into her work at Hope Haven. She organized donation drives, registered families, and even helped teach literacy workshops for young mothers. The work was a lifeline, not just financially, but emotionally. Every basket delivered, every grateful smile reignited her hope. She began to dream again, picturing a future where Mia could grow up secure and full of possibilities. But nights were tough. In her apartment, with the rent still unpaid, the landlord had left an eviction notice. Rachel knew she needed a solution fast, but she refused to beg. She started using her data analysis skills to streamline Hope Haven's donation distribution, impressing even Sister Mary. "You've got a gift, Rachel. This could be bigger than you think," the nun said, her eyes gleaming with pride. Rachel smiled, but the weight of uncertainty lingered. Meanwhile, Ethan faced his own internal struggle. During a team meeting, he revisited the report that led to Rachel's firing and spotted something off. The data looked manipulated, with inconsistencies that didn't add up. He questioned Tom, one of Rachel's colleagues, but the man's vague answers raised red flags. Ethan decided to dig deeper, unaware that this choice would lead him back to Rachel. Seattle, with its bustling streets and relentless energy, seemed to conspire to bring them together again, as if it knew their paths were intertwined. March brought a gentle reprieve to Seattle's damp chill, with a soft breeze drifting through the streets of Belltown, where Hope Haven buzzed with activity. Rachel Bennett, now a cornerstone of the community center, moved with purpose among tables piled with donations, leading volunteers sorting clothes, food, and toys for a major charity event. 3 months had passed since her humiliating dismissal from Nexus Tech, and though the sting of that day lingered like a half-healed wound, Hope Haven had given her a purpose that kept her standing. Her curly hair, now loose, bounced as she jotted notes on a clipboard, organizing every detail with the precision of someone who turned data into solutions. Mia, her 2-year-old daughter, played in a corner with other kids, her giggles filling the room and bringing a smile to Rachel's face. The toddler wore a simple blue dress donated by a volunteer, but to Rachel, Mia was radiant. Every day with her daughter was a triumph, especially after the nights of uncertainty they'd endured. The eviction notice still loomed over their Capitol Hill apartment, but Rachel had negotiated a temporary extension with the landlord using her modest volunteer stipend. It wasn't much, but it kept hope alive. She knew she needed a miracle to secure a stable future for Mia, but for now Hope Haven was her anchor, a place where she was more than a struggling single mom. She was a leader, respected and valued. In Queen Anne, Ethan Carter wrestled with a void he couldn't name. Nexus Tech was thriving, with tech blogs hailing its dominance, but the success felt hollow. He spent nights in his penthouse, gazing at the city's lights, a glass of wine in hand, haunted by New Year's Eve. The image of Rachel and Mia in the rain wouldn't leave him. He'd tried to bury it in work, but it clung to him. The week before, he'd confirmed his suspicions about the report that led to Rachel's firing. The data was tampered with. Tom, a senior analyst, had confessed under pressure to altering the numbers to cover his own mistake, pinning it on Rachel. The truth hit Ethan hard. He'd ruined a talented woman's career, a single mother fighting to survive over an injustice. The guilt burned, unraveling his sense of self. He'd always prided himself on fairness, on building Nexus Tech on merit, but he'd failed. The memory of Rachel at the Hope Haven event, leading with a confidence he hadn't seen in her before, only deepened his regret. Her strength, her grace under pressure, made him question everything. When he learned Nexus Tech was sponsoring a charity event in Belltown, hosted by Hope Haven, he saw a chance to make amends. He almost declined, but felt compelled to go, not as a CEO, but as someone seeking redemption. The Hope Haven event was a burst of life. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, kids darted between game booths, and the aroma of hot cider and cornbread filled the air, evoking a county fair vibe. Rachel, in a white Hope Haven t-shirt and a warm smile, oversaw the distribution of food baskets to registered families. Her energy was infectious, lifting even the weariest volunteers. She paused to talk with each mother, listening to their stories with genuine care, offering encouragement that came from her own heart. Ethan arrived, dressed in a dark blue button-up and sunglasses that hid his unease, spotting Rachel from across the room. She was leaning over a table, explaining something to volunteers, with a poise he hadn't appreciated when she worked for him. His heart raced. He hadn't expected to see her here, so transformed, so in command. For a moment he hesitated, feeling like an outsider in this world of warmth so far from his sterile life. But he needed to talk to her, to fix the wrong that haunted him. Rachel didn't notice him at first, focused on helping a young mother fill out a form for a job training program. When she looked up and saw Ethan a few feet away, her body tensed. His face brought back the sting of her firing, his sharp words echoing in her mind. But Rachel wasn't the same woman from 3 months ago. She squared her shoulders, took a breath, and approached him with a polite but guarded smile. "Mr. Carter didn't expect you here," she said, her voice steady, leaving no room for vulnerability. Ethan removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes heavy with something Rachel couldn't quite read. Guilt, perhaps, or regret. "Rachel, I didn't know you'd be here. You're doing amazing things," he said, his words clumsy. She raised an eyebrow, holding her ground. "Thanks. I'm just doing what I can to help." Her tone was courteous but firm, signaling she wasn't here to reopen wounds. Ethan tried to keep the conversation going, asking about the event, but Rachel's short answers built an invisible wall between them. The tension broke when Mia ran up, clutching a colorful drawing of a sun and a house. "Mommy, look!" she chirped, waving the paper proudly. Rachel knelt down, her smile softening with a tenderness that tugged at Ethan's heart. He watched, struck by the love between them, and felt a pang of longing for something he'd never known. "She's beautiful," he said almost to himself. Rachel glanced at him, surprised by the warmth in his voice, but didn't respond. Instead, she scooped Mia up and returned to work, leaving Ethan with a tightness in his chest. He lingered at the event, watching Rachel lead with effortless grace, comforting a mother, organizing kids for games, radiating strength he'd overlooked at Nexus Tech. As the event wrapped up, he approached her again, resolute. "Rachel, can we talk for a minute?" he asked, hesitant. She met his gaze, her eyes steady but curious. "About what?" Ethan took a breath, knowing he couldn't say everything in the crowd. "About what happened at Nexus Tech. I think I made a mistake." Rachel's heart quickened. She wasn't surprised, she'd always known something was off, but hearing him admit it was unexpected. She nodded. "Okay, but not now. I've got things to handle here." Ethan respected her space, but vowed not to give up. He had to make this right. As Rachel rode the bus home with Mia asleep in her arms, Ethan's words replayed in her mind. The pain of her firing still lingered, but the woman she'd become at Hope Haven wasn't the one who'd left Nexus Tech defeated. She'd found purpose, community, a strength she hadn't known she had. Still, the uncertainty of her future scared her. The unpaid bills, the looming eviction, the fear of failing Mia. But for the first time, she felt she wasn't alone. Hope Haven was more than a temporary refuge. It was a home for her soul. Back in his penthouse, Ethan felt the weight of his emptiness grow. The city view no longer soothed him. He opened his laptop to write Rachel an email, but deleted every draft, the words feeling hollow. He needed more than apologies. He needed to show he was changing. That night, as Seattle slept under a starry sky, Ethan and Rachel, miles apart, felt the same quiet hope. Their encounter in Belltown wasn't just chance. It was the start of something bigger, something neither could yet imagine. Seattle's late afternoon sky glowed with hues of orange and purple, softening the city's sharp edges. Rachel Bennett walked through Belltown, her shoulders heavy with fatigue but her heart warmed by the success of Hope Haven's recent event. In the days since, she'd become a pillar of the center, her knack for organizing and optimizing resources, catching the eye of even the sponsors. But Ethan Carter's words from the event, hesitant and laced with regret, still unsettled her. She refused to let him shake her again. She'd rebuilt her life piece by piece since that crushing New Year's Eve firing, and she wouldn't let the past drag her back. Mia, her 2-year-old, was at home with Mrs. Helen and Rachel planned to spend the evening refining plans for a new Hope Haven project, a tech training program for single mothers. It was her chance to turn her data analysis skills into something transformative, just as her own life had been transformed. The breeze carried the scent of fresh coffee from nearby cafes, and Rachel felt a flicker of optimism. Yet, the overdue rent and looming eviction still haunted her. Hope Haven was a sanctuary, but it wasn't enough to secure Mia's future. In Queen Anne, Ethan Carter faced his own inner storm. In his penthouse, the panoramic view now felt oppressive rather than inspiring. He clutched the report that had changed everything. After the Belltown event, he dug deeper into the error that led to Rachel's firing. The evidence was undeniable, Tom, the senior analyst, had manipulated the data to hide his own failure, framing Rachel. Tom's confession, extracted in a heated meeting, hit Ethan like a freight train. He'd destroyed a brilliant woman's career, a single mother's livelihood over a lie. The guilt gnawed at him, unraveling the image he had of himself as a fair leader. He'd built Nexus Tech on principles of merit, but he'd failed Rachel. Her strength at the event, leading with grace, inspiring others, made him see what he'd missed. When he heard Hope Haven was hosting a fundraising gala, he saw another chance to make things right. He decided to attend, not as a corporate sponsor, but as someone ready to listen and learn. The gala at Hope Haven was radiant, with soft lights, tables adorned with simple flowers, and a stage where volunteers performed acoustic sets that warmed the crowd. Rachel, in a deep green dress that highlighted her quiet confidence, coordinated guest arrivals with seamless precision. Ethan arrived quietly, in a casual button-up, blending into the crowd. When Rachel spotted him, her polite smile returned, but her eyes held caution. "Mr. Carter didn't expect you back so soon," she said, keeping her professional distance. Ethan took a breath, searching for the right words. "Rachel, I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to talk about what happened at Nexus Tech." Her heart raced. The mention of her firing stung, but she was curious. Before she could respond, a commotion on stage interrupted. A young mother, one of Rachel's trainees, collapsed from exhaustion mid-performance. Rachel rushed to help, momentarily forgetting Ethan. He followed, instinctively assisting as they carried the woman to a back room, where Sister Mary provided water and a place to rest. Amid the chaos, Rachel's calm leadership shone, reassuring the crowd and directing volunteers. Ethan stayed close, helping where he could, but mostly marveling at her strength. When things settled, he found her outside, catching her breath under the stars. "You're incredible, Rachel. The way you handle all this. I didn't see who you were before," he said, his voice soft with shame. Rachel met his gaze, her tone firm but not unkind. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." Ethan seized the moment. "I know I was wrong. The report wasn't your fault. Tom tampered with it. I was unfair and I want to make it right." Rachel stood silent, her emotions swirling. She'd suspected the truth, but hearing Ethan admit it stirred a mix of anger, relief, and cautious hope. That night, as the gala ended, Rachel rode home with Mia asleep in her arms, Ethan's confession echoing in her mind. The pain of her firing lingered, but his sincerity cracked her defenses. At home, tucking Mia into bed, she wrestled with what it would mean to give him a chance. It wasn't just about a job. It was about trust, about risking her heart again. In his penthouse, Ethan felt the weight of his actions more than ever. The city view couldn't fill the void. He started a letter to Rachel, pouring out his childhood struggles, his mother's late nights, their fights to survive, and how success had distanced him from his roots. He didn't send it, but kept it, knowing words alone wouldn't rebuild trust. In the days that followed, he visited Hope Haven more often, helping with small tasks and funding the tech program Rachel was building. He kept his distance, showing through actions that he was changing. Rachel noticed, torn between caution and a growing respect. Something was shifting between them, a connection beyond guilt or forgiveness. But it needed time to grow. April's sun bathed Seattle in golden light, softening the city's edges and warming Belltown's streets. Rachel Bennett felt the breeze on her face as she headed to Hope Haven, where the tech training program for single mothers was taking shape. She'd worked tirelessly, designing spreadsheets, planning workshops, and training volunteers to teach basic coding. Her determination turned the center's small office into a hub of hope, where women like her gained skills and confidence to dream again. Mia, now thriving in Hope Haven's daycare, ran among colorful toys, making friends effortlessly. Rachel watched her, her heart swelling with pride that outshone her struggles. The rent was finally caught up, thanks to a grant Sister Mary secured, but the real miracle was Rachel's rediscovered strength. Ethan Carter's confession at the gala lingered, his admission of her wrongful firing and Tom's sabotage stirring complex emotions. She wanted to forgive him, but the memory of that public humiliation, leaving Nexus Tech in the rain with Mia, held her back. Yet his steady presence at Hope Haven donating laptops, helping with tasks, bonding with Mia, was chipping away at her walls. His patience with her daughter, the way he knelt to admire Mia's drawings, stirred something she wasn't ready to name. That morning, as Rachel reviewed the program's schedule, Ethan arrived at Hope Haven with a surprise: 10 new laptops for the trainees. He walked in, almost shy, carrying a box branded with a tech logo. "Thought these might help with the course," he said, setting it down. Rachel looked up, caught off guard, and for the first time in months her smile was unguarded. "This is amazing, Ethan. It'll mean so much to them," she said, her voice warm with gratitude. Mia ran over, clutching a drawing of a colorful heart. "Uncle Ethan, look," she chirped, thrusting it at him. Ethan knelt, grinning, and took the drawing like it was priceless. "This is awesome, Mia, you're an artist," he said, her laughter filling the space. Rachel watched, her heart softening. Ethan's gentleness with Mia, so unexpected from the man who'd fired her, stirred something deep. For the first time, she saw not the ruthless CEO, but a man trying to find his way in a world he didn't fully understand. That evening, a sudden rain hit Seattle, keeping Rachel late at Hope Haven to protect donations from getting wet. Ethan, still there helping, offered to drive her and Mia home. Rachel hesitated, but exhausted and soaked, accepted. In his black SUV, the scent of leather mingling with the rain, Mia dozed in the back, wrapped in a blanket from Ethan's trunk. The silence between them was easy, punctuated only by the patter on the windshield. "Rachel, I know words can't undo what I did," Ethan started, eyes on the road. "But I want to make this right. Not just for you, but because I believe in you." Rachel looked at him, her guard lowering. The drive felt like a bridge between their past and a possible future, fragile but real. May's clear skies dotted Seattle with stars, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of coffee through Belltown. Rachel Bennett felt lighter as she walked to Hope Haven, where the tech program now thrived, with 10 mothers mastering coding basics. She'd become an inspiration, helping women rebuild their dreams as she had hers. Mia, blossoming in the daycare, chased a ball with infectious joy. Rachel's heart swelled. The paid-up rent a small victory compared to the strength she'd found. Ethan's presence, his donations, his quiet support, his bond with Mia, had softened her defenses, though the pain of her firing lingered. She hesitated to trust fully, knowing how betrayal hurt. Ethan, meanwhile, was changing in ways he barely recognized. His Queen Anne penthouse felt cold without the warmth Rachel and Mia brought. He spent less time at Nexus Tech, finding purpose at Hope Haven, where guilt over Rachel's firing mixed with admiration for her strength. Watching her teach a mother to navigate software, patient and encouraging, he felt a deep respect, and something more. He needed to be honest. After a craft fair at Hope Haven under a blooming cherry tree, he spoke. "Rachel, I betrayed who I thought I was when I fired you. You and Mia showed me what matters, not money, but this, making a difference. I can't erase the past, but I want a future with you if you'll let me." Rachel's heart raced. His words carried the weight of her pain, the abandonment by Mia's father, the struggle, the firing. She looked at the cherry blossoms, glowing in the moonlight, and thought of Mia's future. "Ethan, I see you're changing," she said softly. "But that day hurt me deeply. If I give you a chance, it has to be real, not guilt, not pity. I need a partner, not a savior." Ethan nodded, eyes glistening. "I promise, Rachel. I want to walk beside you and Mia if you'll have me." Mia ran up, thrusting a beaded necklace at him. "Uncle Ethan, for you," she squealed. Ethan laughed, kneeling to hug her, and Rachel felt her walls crumble. Mia's trust in him was a sign she couldn't ignore. In the weeks that followed, their bond grew. Ethan spent evenings at Rachel's apartment, fixing a leaky faucet or cooking simple meals. One night, on her tiny balcony with the city humming below and a pitcher of lemonade between them, Ethan shared his childhood, his mother's late nights, their struggles in Idaho, how success had isolated him. Rachel opened up too, her dreams of engineering, Mia's unexpected arrival, the strength her daughter gave her. For the first time, they saw each other as equals, scarred but hopeful. When Ethan took her hand, tentative, Rachel didn't pull away. The touch was warm, real, and she felt trust stirring. The real test came when her landlord announced the sale of her apartment, threatening the home she'd fought for. Ethan offered a solution. "Move in with me. My place is too big for one person. Mia deserves a yard and you deserve peace." Rachel hesitated, pride clashing with hope, but his sincerity won her over. "I'll pay my share, Ethan. This is a partnership, not charity," she insisted. Moving into Ethan's modern home in Fremont, with its sprawling garden, was a turning point. Mia loved the backyard swing Ethan built, and Rachel brought life to the space with Mia's photos and potted plants. The once sterile house pulsed with warmth. One evening, as they cooked dinner, Mia climbed onto Ethan's lap and asked, "Uncle Ethan, are you my daddy?" The question hung heavy. Ethan looked at Rachel, eyes misty, and said, "If your mom says it's okay, I'd love to be Mia." Rachel, tears falling, nodded. They were a family. Months later, Rachel, now Hope Haven's lead coordinator, launched the Roots Foundation, a tech-driven non-profit offering coding courses for women in need. Ethan invested, but let Rachel lead, recognizing her vision. The launch, a packed event in Belltown, saw Rachel take the stage with Mia in her arms, sharing her journey from despair to triumph. The crowd gave a standing ovation, and Ethan, watching, felt pride and love like never before. Their wedding in a blooming garden the next spring was simple but radiant. Rachel walked with Mia, who tossed petals with glee. Ethan at the altar couldn't look away. Their vows were heartfelt, Rachel promising a life of truth and respect, Ethan vowing to stand by her side. Mia, running between them, called Ethan Daddy, sparking laughter and tears from the crowd of Hope Haven friends and trainees. The Roots Foundation grew, transforming lives across the Northwest, with Rachel as its visionary. Ethan, more partner than CEO, found purpose in her dreams. Together they built a family and a legacy, proving love and resilience could bloom even in the darkest storms. What did you think of this moving story, full of twists and heart? Please like and subscribe to the channel for more impactful tales like this. Share your thoughts on this emotional ending in the comments.